beautiful people. Now, there's no doubt more and more people having difficulties, especially during these times, to deal with life's adversity. I'm hugely inspired by our guest today. Born with cerebral palsy, he's managed to use life's adversities as fuel to create a greater future, whilst compiling a portfolio with numerous fictional books, including the final fence Sophomores in the Saddle, which is all about his personal experiences on how to deal and survive with life's adversities, including a physical disability. Without further ado, let's give a huge welcome to the Rebecca Davi Show, author and poet Marc O'Brien. How are you doing today, Marc?
I am doing fine, Rebecca. I am an author. I'm a fictional author. My goals out here is to educate the public in a way where they can feel comfortable using interpretation. I'm a storyteller. I put information in a format where it can be discussed peacefully. That is what fiction, interpretive fiction, is all about. And in my book, The Final Fence, Sophomores in the Saddle, I compare the academic classroom with the athletic field. And it dates back to my college years when I used to do a series of newspaper articles about whether someone was an athlete or a jock. This is back during the Reagan administration where things were a little bit, they were peaceful, and we were living a life where we went to college and we were gaining skills to go on into to use in our future life. All this education springboarded this book, The Final Fence, Sophomores in the Saddle, which is published by Austin Macaulay, UK. And as I said, I compare different things. Unlike John Hughes, the late director, in St. Elmo's Fire, which dealt with youth activities, they never got into a demographic which was the disabled person or the person who was allowed into school systems and by the 80s was going to college. I'm talking about the child that was affected by things like German measles, rubella, and all the other things that would, spinal bifida and everything. Well, anyway, I took a character, I created a character, and it was a makeup of myself, and I made him to have two canes, and because he doesn't have any balance, and I put two wristbands on him. I never get into exactly what his disability is because he has two canes. You see the two canes. That is the idea. But he also has two wristbands. The two canes were because he did something. It was something that was beyond his control. And the two wristbands was something he did to himself. He self-destructed. He got himself into a situation where he tried to take his own life, but the healthcare worker, the nurses, were there to patch him back up again. Not that the healthcare worker and the nurses were there to patch him up again when he was dealing with what created his two canes. But anyway, that's Eddie Patrick. That's the main character in the book, the Final Fence series. He also has friends at college, which are journalism major, nursing majors, and education. In all these different, through all the book, I bat around, I compare them and everything, because if you're going to make a college campus work, everybody has to work together.
Yes.
You do that by, using your skills during those 4 years on campus, in person. And it's most importantly, it's a maturing factor. You're also dealing with real life issues with fellow students, and you have this common commodity, this common denominator. You're this so-and-so, whatever the mascot of the school is. What happens in the Final Fence, Sophomores in the Saddle, I bring in another character. It's a female character, and she's an equestrian, and she has a dream of being on the United States equestrian team. And she ends up on the South Florida campus of Southern Dominican University. And she's able-bodied, and she has this wonderful pony called the Great Satan. And this pony is a large pony that anybody could ride. And the thing is, Daniel Lynn is her name, and she has all these different dreams. And she came to Southern Dominican Catholic University to study because Her mother was a graduate of school. She ends up, and they end up having a friendship. The Final Fantasy is not about winning; it's about living, and which means you have to keep your friends together, and you have to have that secure base, and because that is what is important. And my main message here is like, no, you don't go into these events looking to win a competition. You go in for closure because the experience itself. There's a lot of commitment. There's a lot of things that you're doing something. You're doing something to achieve a goal. But the most important thing is you're bringing closure to yourself. And the thing is, the disabled person with closure and if you have closure and the academic credibility and achievements, you put those two things together, that equals a very, very powerful, a very, very well put together individual despite a so-called disability. And that is what we have to do these days, is because we are becoming a society where disabilities are coming into a more mainstream, and we have a choice.
Right. Yeah.
There's a point where you cannot say anything, and yes, if you go into a situation and not say anything about a disability, and you just go in and be honest and truthful, the disability does go away. That's good. That's fantastic. But if we have to but we also need to maybe on the other level is to nurture this demographic.
Yep.
Make sure that they know that they can. It's based on education. It's based on building your independent person of who you are. That is why fiction is a very wonderful avenue to teach children, high school and college, about facing adversity. It is not a course in school. It is not something I grew up with people saying, I'm inspired by you.
Yeah.
And I go through that thing a lot. That's okay. But I would like to hear the words, I learned a lot from you. It is so important for the teachers these days to listen to the students, because they could be yelling. I'm not saying yelling. They could be screaming for help. And I have a little saying is, I would like to see more creative writing, and the English teachers should be able to maybe put down the red pens and not worry about grammar, because that can be all taken care of with the computer these days. But listen to what the kids are writing and what they're talking about, because that is what's going to catch a problem. We have, in this country, we're having all these problems with gun control and all this self-destruction activity, but that should be able to get caught in the activity of writing. Everything in the Final Fantasy actually sort of happened, but I just fictionalized it. Yeah. But the thing is, it was based on socialization. It was based on, after a competition is over, you talk humbly to people. Going to school here in Florida, you'd walk on the horse show grounds and you would see a Grand Prix rider because they're in a different division and you're doing schooling over here. But that was our world. That was our, competitive socialization. That's what made it special. That is why it was so wonderful for environment for a disabled person, because it gave me a foundation of something that, of who I am. And that's, instead of going on and being called special needs student, being shoved into a classroom, I had these extracurricular activities. I was a college-bound student, especially with a disabled person. Do not look at them and shove them into a situation over here. Nurture what they have. Find their strengths and goals. Because you know what? 20 years later, they'll come back and they won't be self-destructing on painkillers or whatever. They will be getting their degrees and going into, or they'll get, even if they graduate from the School of Hard Knocks, they'll be sending a message to people of how important that they are.
You could have chosen to write a memoir Why did you choose to write a fictional book and not?
Do you know what it takes to fiction? Do you think I remember everything that's happened in my life? My family's so interesting, but the thing is, with fiction, you don't hurt anyone. That is the most important thing. You can display the information out there in a way where you can say, okay, I'm sending a message. I like to think of it as I'm dropping hints, not fences. Where I developed this character, Peter the pediatric pandas, who volunteers at the children's hospital to assist nurses in communicating with the pediatric patients, communicating with them to find out what's wrong and building that trusting communication.
What was the writing process like? Because I know with Final Fence, it took you around 3 to 5 years to write.
Well, I wrote the Final Fence series. All three books are done. They just have to be edited, professionally edited. The first one is with Austin McCall UK. The second one is I had to sign the contract. Once again, London is in the ghost town situation that it is, and so nothing is moving. But the Final Fence was written in Las Vegas. They had the proper elements. They had the good food. I had a nice little one-bedroom apartment where I had access to things to do. And through a period of about 3 years, 4 years, I just penned the whole thing. I used a style which I call writing on the improv, which I sort of just wrote, sat down, chose a topic, wrote it, and developed my scenes, and then jumped to a new scene by using something from the previous scene. So that's how it was done. It was just I call it improv, where I just springboard each scene. And as I said, you go from writing a sentence to writing a paragraph to writing a page. Then the pages start to become a chapter. Then the chapters become something you send off to a publisher. And it's very wonderful because the nice thing about getting an ISBN number, even if you do it on a self-publishing level, is you can take away that ISBN number. And that's something you take into your social situations. You never say you're out of work. You say, I'm an author. And the thing is, I don't look at it like having a job. I always say, I contribute to society. Figure out who you are and what you want to be. Because things start off with dreams, but through education, you develop your weaknesses and your strengths, and your strengths will make your goals. And once you develop those goals, then that's when you become a successful person. I come from the generation that embraced those films, and so you're going to see a lot of that stuff in it because that's what influenced me as a writer.
Quality films as well, Marc.
Quality, yeah. Well, they did send a message back then, and I think it's just something where filmmakers have done their job for decades. And anyway, this will be probably distributed around the Academy Awards time. I hope that the filmmakers, I'm an author where my imagination is my own, and they do prey on the author's imagination, and the filmmaker does change what the author says at times. But let me tell you, in this country, and I know in Europe, and in Europe they've done a wonderful job. The filmmaker has brought to light issues where you can watch it, and then you go back after your Starbucks, and you can discuss the issues in a peaceful manner. But the thing is, they have done a bang-up job. I grew up on Irwin Allen. I grew up during the when Vietnam was ending and everything. And so I grew up on things like Irwin Allen, who directed a lot of natural disaster things. So, I grew up also on the TV shows like The Bionic Man. That's how I grew up, and I think that made me a stronger person. You have to respect the disability, and instead of entering into their world, just respect their world, their views, and listen to them, and make them stronger, because that investment may win a war in the future, or an argument, or or bring peace to a situation. And I hope that's something that people will take from my writings.
Yeah, and also see everyone as equal,
And the thing is, what is starting to cause these things? And that is, when you figure out what's causing the things, you can figure out how to not let that thing happen again. And that's when you have your peaceful resolution. That's when you have your resolution after the conflict of, if you can do it peacefully, great. And that is what you have. But as I said, you have to keep it cool. You have to realize, observe the whole situation and see where the wrongs are made, where the rights are made. And once you can do that, then hopefully we'll have a peaceful resolution to all this stuff.
So true. I think another way of finding peace as well is obviously through writing as well. The fact that right now more than ever, it's so important for people to express their emotion through writing as opposed to just bottling up how they feel because it's detrimental to their health.
Well, I say you're expressing yourself in your writing. You're in your private area. You're in your private, aura, and you are God. And a fictional author is God. I can do whatever I want with my characters in my little private world.
When you say the God, do you mean as in being a creator?
Oh, I have the whole control of the story.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
I can make a character fall in love. I can make a character kill another character.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by God.
Yeah.
And that's something, that's a power play. But then I have to, I turn my stuff over to an editor, and they may want to change things. So there goes that power play. But I can share myself. But the thing is, once again, my important thing is, you can write something and you can throw it out. But if you act upon something, it can't be taken away from you. Hopefully, someone will pick up the stuff and my stuff and really think about it. And I don't wish a disability on anybody. It is not the greatest way to live a life. But I also have a feeling of, if you read a book, do you want to read a book without a conflict? No. And I've said that in high school, and I still say it. And because every day is an adventure. But flash fiction is wonderful. Or short fiction is a wonderful way to get started. Or even if you're in between writing books, it's a nice way to just get something out there and get it on display. Because there's a lot of different ways you can distribute flash and short fiction. Short fiction is, I think it's short stories under 6,000 words. Or flash fiction is 1,000 words, which is basically you're going beginning, middle, end. It's a couple of scenes, but you make your point.
Amazing. I'm so curious to know, Mark, who inspires you?
I'm not really inspired by anybody. I just take I just go through things and learn, and just I listen to other people and learn from them. I think it's better to learn from someone than to be inspired.
Yeah, that's true. And also to learn from experience, your own experience, isn't it? Which makes it more so powerful.
Exactly, exactly. And of course, if it comes from a writer, that means they're telling their stories and their experiences, and you can interpret them from them. And of course, we've had this COVID-19 where we've had words of stay at home, quarantine, and a lot of these harsh words. And we're going to have to really soothe and keep the international relations on a positive route. And hopefully, the artists will once again step up and be there. And I hope to be one of those artists, and discussing facing adversity, and saying, hey, this is what happens if something goes wrong. You could be disabled, and you don't get inspired by us, learn from us, and hopefully we'll be able to build a better society.
Amen. Now, you've written numerous books, Mark.
Yeah, a lot of them are right now. A lot of them are based on my therapeutic equestrian background, which I am very proud of. And I went from a leader and two sidewalkers to showing horses on the South Florida Hunter and Jumper Association. And that I would hope that the social worker or the physical therapist or the psychologist will take a hard look at that. I am putting it together in fictional artistic form of a book and books, and I hope they take a hard look at that background and say, well, despite having all this stuff taken away from him at birth, he was able to obtain a recreational, just like everybody else, had a recreational life with the horses. So I hope that in society is honing the disabled and saying, hey, we'll give you this platform to put that thing on a piece of paper so you can go on and rehabilitate your life and become a contributor to society. I grew up in New Jersey, which is sort of 1 hour out of New York City, so I also was a member of the South Side Theater at Middletown High School South, and I was in my senior production of the Fiddler on the Roof, and I played Malcolm the Beggar. I did not get a singing role. I don't know really how to sing, but the thing is, once again, I'm an author. I had a couple of lines that I do remember to this day. Alms to the poor, 1 kopeck, that's when you give me 2 kopecks. What, you have a bad week? So that's Malcolm the Beggar's big lines in the Fiddler on the Roof. But the thing is, it opened me up to, if you put a disabled person on stage in a high school level, you were opening up to other students. How are you going to handle the situation? You're going to work around it. And it's the artist or the director, if the teacher, the drama teacher is doing it the right way, it's a wonderful way to instill how are you going to, to a high school, to a teenager, how are you going to deal with the situation when something out of the normal happens? It's a good way to teach facing adversity.
What would you say to people who are currently watching or listening and going through life's pressures and find it difficult to cope at the moment?
Do not panic.
The one thing,
do not panic.
do not panic.
My background is in public relations. So, that's where I did not, all my avenues in my professional world have been very level-headed. But the things that come from public relations, which is crisis communications, and one of my biggest skills is I don't panic. And the thing is, assess what has happened. And you have to learn not to panic. And you have to learn how to sit back, relax, and assess the whole situation, and plan your battlefield, and plan your strategy where you're going to, it's the protagonist against the antagonist. You're the protagonist, and the adversity you're facing is the antagonist, and you have to figure out how you're going to deal with this conflict. And that is how you deal with it. And that's it. Number one thing is that if you go into a situation and you say please and thank you, and you show respect and support, you know what, that disability does go away. Whenever you're what you're facing adversity with, does go away, and that community support does come through. And mental health is so important. There's nothing wrong with seeing a psychologist either. That is also another thing that is if I've learned using mental health professionals, you can state your case if no one else is listening. You are also, with a mental health professional, you can also get your thoughts cleared. And a lot of that I did in Vegas is that I had a wonderful mental health professional who listened, and I was able to, and every time I left his office, am I still speaking coherently? And he said, yes, because cerebral palsy does come from a trauma and everything, so I don't know what's down the line, but I'm still talking coherently. And I also do other speaking engagements and everything where, I'm also now talking to TV shows where I'm expressing things in the communication. So I'm hoping I'm talking coherently. So that is also what is also important with the mental health professional. They're also bringing closure because you're getting yourself, you're getting your emotions out. But the number one thing is don't panic.
Yeah, I love that.
Don't panic and don't self-destruct.
I love that.
And be honest. If you find those urges to self-destruct, just be honest with things and say, hey, things are getting out of control, as someone else once said last century on his talk show.
I love that. I love that so much, Marc. And also, as you said previously, do not be afraid to seek professional help. It's so important to speak to someone.
As I said, once again, it goes back to Peter to Panda. It's two sides to a communication module, but you also have to have honesty on both sides. And hopefully our nurses will be there, or, you're supposed to put their trust in them. You know what? Also, the media is also, if they can get a little bit more mature in handling information, hopefully that they'll come around too, because that is also another avenue of communication that is relevant in finding closure, because you're letting someone else know your story, and once you tell your story, you will find out closure by different elements that will open up after you tell the story.
Yes, there's so much power in sharing your story. So, what's next for you, Marc?
For me, catching up on what the Yankees are doing against Tampa Bay, which is happening right now. But other than that, we have the Masters this weekend, which I'll probably catch on TV. And also, I'm living a nice life here in Cocoa Beach. I'm doing a lot of writing. I'm doing a lot of fictional, I'm doing a lot of short fiction, which keeps things going. I'm waiting out this pandemic. Once that's over, I will go down to my alma mater, Barry University, and hopefully I'll get my alumni card and make sure everything is, tight in there, and hopefully introduce myself to the communication professors. And hopefully, since being in Florida now, I will strengthen my relationships with my university, which is one of the things I would tell someone. If you have that college degree, that university is there for life, and that relationship is there for life. Always check back with them. Always call your alumni magazines or alumni department to update them on what you're doing, because they are a good hold of some place to go. But and also I will probably hopefully strengthen my relationship with Austin Macaulay, UK, which is also, I'm looking at them as, for my work, I will give them first refusal, and hopefully Peter will find a home there on an international level, because all my books are self-published. So I have all these different stories which a publisher can pick up and everything. So hopefully, I will hope all my horseback riding stories and my basic university stories will be in one place, so that healthcare worker or that social worker will have a resource to go to really do their homework on how one person was able to handle a physical disability that was not their fault. So things are looking up. Once you get through this whole international situation of a pandemic.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Marc, you have been absolutely incredible. I think you are so inspiring, and to see how you managed to overcome adversity and using your story, your journey to empower others. I feel like it's amazing and very much needed, especially during these times. I hope a lot of people grab their copy of The Final Fence, know that you can overcome life's adversities. and find greatness within adversity also. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking my account, because all this information is very important, and if I can be, as I said, if someone can learn from me instead of inspire, these interviews are a way, and a very nice way of distributing the information. So thank you for not only the time, but taking my account of how I put up with the disability.
Marc is clearly living proof that if you think positively, you get positive results. If you think negatively, well, you can imagine. Don't forget to grab your copy of The Final Fence Sophomores in the Saddle on Amazon and use the Don't forget to grab your copy of The Final Fence Sophomores in the Saddle on Amazon. And you can also grab a copy on austinmacaulay.com. I repeat, that's austinmacaulay.com. Thanks for watching. Stay true to who you are. Keep smiling, keep shining, and most importantly, have a beautiful day. Welcome back, beautiful people.